Okay, there we go. I think we're live. Right? Yeah, we're live. Okay, so let's put the link in the Discord.
And you can do it. Wait, are you live?
Yeah, I am live, I think.
Are you like on Twitch, right?
No, on YouTube.
On YouTube? Okay, so you're doing it on YouTube. Okay.
But
Uh,
man, this is embarrassing.
it doesn't matter. Just, okay.
Also, I love how like the thumbnail is just one giant orange block because I really didn't bother to yeah. So anyways,
Is your URL different than mine is?
uh no idea. Hmm. Okay, never mind. I found the URL. I just restart the stream again because like that's really yeah.
Can you not edit the streams afterwards?
I can, but like I'd rather it's fine. Actually, I'd rather
I don't
send
know how you're wanting to do this.
yeah, I know it's a uh I'll just put the stream link here out. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm gonna find a better thumbnail later. So let's see, has anyone joined in? Uh well then, I don't it's I
Hmm?
hmm. I don't think anyone joined yet, right? Yeah, nobody's here yet. Okay,
Um,
oh anyways, I guess we should probably just start then.
sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's so yeah, GP Caracas.
So GP Caracas. Interesting GP because it's the first one after all the kind of first one after all the stuff happened with wildcards, so Rini and
Yeah.
whatnot, and as well as Infuse. But then on top of that, you also have Over the Horizons and Adventures of Onoa
Yeah.
entering the format, which are two very interesting sets for
There's
different
some
reasons.
there's some pretty powerful cards in there. Yes.
Yeah, I got a preview of that last GP with Valdez.
Yep. Yeah, Valdez. Probably one of the strongest cards in the format currently, honestly.
Yeah, I'd say this is kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I think Valdez probably is just the strongest card in the format. Um,
Really? Hmm.
I don't know if there's actually any card that matches Valdez as a in terms of like results.
Yeah.
Where last GP, first GP Valdez was legal, 2 copies in top 8, which is already pretty good for how diverse the format is. Then this GP, there's actually 4 copies of Valdez in the top 8, which I think is like 50% conversion rate or something. I think there's eight decks playing Valdez.
But there's actually, was there actually 4 deck? Yeah.
Yeah, Homage, Tribal, Scribble, Splash Cat, and Zonas while playing Valdez.
Uh,
So like the final was a Valdez meal.
yeah. And like, I thought that's actually mattered quite a bit in that match.
Yeah, and I mean just the difference of like Valdez taking Valdez or whose Valdez takes whose. I could definitely see mattering.
Yeah.
Um, so just going straight into the decks with Valdez. As I mentioned, final was Valdez Mew match with
Yep.
Scribble on Black Red Attrition. I forget what they placed last GP. They top aided, but I forget the
It,
exact.
actually, I don't
I guess
remember either. Like, it's somewhere. I know I could probably check, but
I
it
think
just,
they top forward. I don't remember though. But winning the back to back top eights, very strong performance.
yeah.
And really, by all means, there's a couple updates with Mad Inferno compared to last this. But really, this deck seems pretty tame for what it's worth.
Well, yeah, but like, sometimes it just goes off.
Yeah, but like Fire Tempo is not a card that I'd really expect to see. Where like you'd expect to see just like straight lightning bolt. Not that it's in the format, but in terms of like modern playable cards. And nothing really is that particularly broken on a Scribbles deck, but it seems obviously does very well.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is just Valdez, to be completely honest.
Oh, well, there's Valdez, and then you also have a bunch of other discard stuff.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Or just like the Valdez with a discard package.
yeah.
Just Lieutenant Stolen Secrets is just a very powerful combination. And then with Wizardness, Wizardness,
Yeah.
um,
Is it was there any running the deck that you gave them?
oh yeah, they made some edits with the Terraformers Club
Yeah.
and a bunch of edits in Sideboard, which is there's so many random one-offs.
Nice.
But I think this is a deck that if Valdez didn't exist, I'd probably not build it. That's kind of how important I see Valdez in this style of deck. Don Hill's Board Master kind of plays a similar role.
They're both adventure creatures that have a really cheap adventure that gives you card advantage, or not even not card advantage, just well, no, it is card advantage because you get a creature after the discard.
Yeah, where really this kind of style of deck with Dawson, I had a lot of troubles building prior to Valdez and Forge Master because Dawson can die, right? Dawson and Toddy are not super consistent win conditions. And if you draw all your like random removal or dirty creatures like an used to,
Right.
you can just kind of but like if you draw too many lands is another huge problem this type of deck. But if you draw like 5 lands or 6 lands, you're just out of cards and there's not much to do. Whereas Valdez kind of fixes all those problems. Don Hill for the Master too.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's a big reason why this type of deck is much stronger than it used to be. Whereas previously Dawson was kind of a really strong card, obviously, but kind of ended up being a bit low tier, or
Well,
it didn't show up in results a bunch.
I mean, Dawson also got changed a bunch, so
Yeah, the Helix being changed to +1, and the well, the original +1 being nerfed made tab treasures.
Yeah.
Definitely partly affected that.
I mean, but in this deck, you have random artifacts lying around, so second ability being a +1 is really good.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how much it came up in their game in Zenius's games, but Dawson is really hard to kill
Yeah.
with the Helix and going to full loyalty.
It even lets you stabilize quite a bit because the Helix gains you life and kills something.
So, but I kind of see this deck and Scribble deck as kind of very similar ideas, where the strength is in where Valdez is where a lot of the kind of power behind them is coming, where
Yeah.
it gives them that kind of oomph to get past that spot that normally they couldn't get past.
Like
Um,
basically like just an extra oomph to win after you 1-for-1 them a bunch.
yeah, more or less. Where Valdez is a quick clock, discard helps your game plan, good top deck, which discard is generally not. But yeah, obviously that's not to say that there's not more going on with both these lists. Abyss Necromancer is obviously a big card, but
Yeah. And like
in this list,
Wizard's deck even runs Explorer's Torch and a bunch of other random common art equipment just to support Downhill Forge Master, which I think is really cool.
yeah, I think if you see Vada Marble Row, it's a good sign that it's my list, and I really like that card.
Yeah.
I think I've played like half the games in it that have been played in the format with Vada Marble Row.
Well, and also Kaelin.
Yeah, Kalen too. And speaking of Kalen, that's the card that Wizardness decided to promo. It
Yeah.
makes sense. Kalen is an incredibly strong card just in general. A lot of decks have a huge amount of trouble dealing with it.
Yeah.
Um, and Kalen also enables a discard block with Box and Deathbit's Trophy, though I don't know if that actually ever happened
But
in
well,
the games.
no, I don't think it happened.
Um, Definitely a lot going on in this deck. Box being another important card, Tardy, Spawn Cohort,
The
really
deck,
the quips
yeah, the deck
being relevant.
is very toolboxy.
Yeah, definitely a ton of things going on. Lots of ways to spend your mana. Um, but I think um, um, but I think just in terms of like narrative wise, I think Valdez being the big card pushing this deck is a major thing. Letting you kind of play interactive discard for kind of free almost.
Yeah.
Without that many problems. Then going on to the top four, you also have kind of an interesting pair up. The decks don't face each other.
Yeah.
They knock down top four.
Well,
You
I think
have
it's very unfortunate how Splashcat lost.
with a couple too many game rule violations.
Yeah.
The Splashcat deck seems like Veer.
Yeah.
Lots of things going on,
Well,
as you might expect from 140 cards.
yeah. Well, it's a dream site deck first of all, and it's a 5-color deck. And the thing with Veer and Dreamside is that since you're running Dreamside, you have a lot more room to put in all of the required cards for Veer.
Yeah, I think they've mentioned in the past that they wouldn't be playing Veer if this wasn't already a 5-color Dreamside deck. Veer is not a big reason to go into this. They mainly wanted a stats command in combination with Dreamside well for the combo kill.
Right. And yeah, Restau's command plus Dreamside well into Restot's command is a combo kill, which
Yeah.
does give the deck a lot more power than normal Dream Sight lists, because now you actually have a way to kill your opponent instead of just grinding them out with value.
Yeah, having a nice quick kill is always very nice.
And the deck also runs a bunch of tutor effects, so it's not even that unlikely to get the kill.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this combo kill, just because I think to a certain extent it's just kind of speeding up the process that Dream Sight already does. Where I think a lot of times you could just kind of grind people out with Dream Sight without needing the combo kill. I think kind of the more interesting thing is, first of all, this deck also runs Valdez. Big shocker.
Yeah.
But you have the combination of Thriving, Bubbling, and L Humble Apprentice, which is kind of the neat thing about the decks that got knocked out in top 4, where Thriving, Bubbling, obviously a great mana draw. Doesn't fix your mana, but helps, but grows very quickly in the late stage of the game, becomes a real threat.
Yeah.
And L, while not being innately powerful, I don't think L is that innately powerful. But I think it's just efficient enough to kind of make the style deck work. Where we're having that what Sylvan Ranger is it? Switching for basic at 2 mana on a body is nice. But having the ability to have a late game value piece really fixes the main problem with these kind of 5-color rampish style decks, where you can just kind of get 1-for-1 out of the game. This is discard.
And also Valir, all Valir's abilities are relevant in a lot of games, because in worst case scenario you can just pay 5 mana and sacrifice L to exile something.
Yeah, definitely.
And Valir also tutors out Dream Sight well, among other things.
Yeah. But and L also really makes getting 5-color mana base much reasonable without too much cost. So flipping to the other deck in the top 4, which I was playing.
The Purplemurasaki's Lamel, non-creatures Lamel.
Yeah, so very different deck than Flashcats. But still on that same kind of core of Thriving, Bubbling plus L. Well, obviously payoffs are very different with Lone Survivor and the Grand Maelstrom Elemental. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, there's something I've noticed throughout the tournament is that I feel like the Grand Submergus is way better than Maelstrom Elemental every time you played it.
Yeah, very true. I think I might have started out Maelstrom Elemental in every match.
Do you think future iterations of this deck should be running 4 main deck Submergs?
Probably, yeah.
And actually, the funny thing is, didn't you originally add Submerg to the deck as a sideboard tech against Temur Tempo or something?
I think I added it when I was iterating. I think I was testing against Temur Tempo, but I don't think that was the main reason. I think I was just unhappy with Maelstrom Elemental.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I added Maelstrom Elemental and was like, okay, this is okay. And then added Grand Smith and like, okay, seems good as well.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of improvements that can be made with this specific deck. Grand Smith is definitely better than Maelstrom Elemental. One thing. I think there's a have a good argument that Bessie's Boon and Hellion Devastator, there should be more copies main deck.
Just so you can flip them off Submerg?
No, just to have more interaction pieces.
Yeah.
and so you can win kind of with Lone Survivor and Devastator beatdown.
Right.
Hard to get 1-for-1 if you don't draw a Ground Smoke.
Also, how's Summit Guardian been working out for you? Because I thought that card would have been really good, but I feel like most games it just never, or it was never relevant, or just never came into play.
It was okay, but I think generally it was a bit underwhelming. I think part of it is that you don't actually have that many options for what 5-drops you can play, because you do have one to trigger this Thriving Buddling, so you can't play like double green cards.
Right.
And I think Summit Guardian is better than like not Lone Survivor, Cosmonaut. But
Well, I mean, it screws over. Actually, have you managed to screw over non-creature based decks with Summit Guardian yet?
I haven't played. I didn't play against any control decks besides Resonus.
That's actually quite hilarious.
Yeah, but really the reason this deck works, in my opinion, is because you have L plus Thriving Buddling. And that's something I only really realized after playing a couple matches in the GP. But yeah, you have all these powerful cards with Lone Survivor and whatnot, but Thriving Buddling and L giving you much more redundancy and threats really makes the deck tick.
So what about the hate bears, or I mean non-creature hate? Is that like still forge the deck, or is that just something that you're probably thinking about cutting eventually?
Yeah, it's probably cuttable. I mean, the green Hellion Devastating basically would be replacing Fog Spewers and Maelstrom Elementals and whatnot.
Also, why Devon's Masterwork of all things?
I need a 3-drop rank creature and couldn't play Sangjin because Sangjin's a human.
Oh.
Also a legend. Because Grand Smug does not hit legends.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering why you weren't playing Sanjin.
There's a surprising amount of deck building restrictions in this deck. With the Grand Smug and Lone Survivor and whatnot. As well, Thriving Buddling too. But yeah. But I think this kind of shell with L and Thriving Buddling has a lot of weight to it. I don't think it necessarily even matters what your payoffs are. Like a very natural payoff would that neither me nor Splash got used, but is Thunder Raids.
Yeah.
Where L triggers Thunder Raids.
Does L trigger Thunder Roads?
Well, on turn 5, you play L, fetch your 5th land, and then play Thunder Raids.
Oh, I guess that. Oh yeah, that does work. Well, I mean,
or on turn 4, trigger Thriving Buddling with a Thriving Buddling. Trigger the Thriving Buddling too. Might as well.
Yeah. I mean, too bad L flip doesn't actually trigger Thriving Buddling, because that would actually been insane.
But yeah, that would be an incredibly powerful interaction, but unfortunately not the case.
I think we talked enough about this deck.
Yeah, the one thing I want to mention is that Grave being both a land and a way to trigger Thriving Buddling is kind of cool.
Right.
Since you can load up into decks. But yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about with these decks. Going on to Timo Tempo.
So insert names deck.
Yeah. Additionally, Magnus was also on it, that they unfortunately dropped because they didn't have much time.
Yeah.
So insert name top loader with it.
Well, it's actually 4-color Tempo, but yeah.
Yeah. You're playing white for Mabel and Sweep the Leg. So I think obviously the big card is Mattia, being introduced. Sweep the Leg is kind of interesting too, though from what I heard, they hadn't been impressed with it.
Well, it actually wrecks manlands. That's what they're using. That's what they've been using it for.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I'm not saying that even without through the leg, they would still be playing white just for Mabel. They thought that splashing for Mabel was worthwhile.
Oh yeah, I mean it's sort of the splash is kind of free because like you have fractured reach, you're playing Nebula anyways, and oh yeah, renewal growth. That's one of the lands that's starting to see play now. It's
Yeah,
really good in instant decks because you can play down on your turn. Then if you pass your turn to your opponent, then it's no longer tapped. I mean, this thing it fetches is no longer exerted.
yeah, very cool interaction. So I think the big improvement again is Mattia, where previously it was really hard for these kind of tempo decks to put much pressure on the opponent until like turn 4. When the bounty the gardens and portal fractures started to be online.
Yeah.
I will say that is a cost to playing Mabel, where for fractured reach you don't really want to draw to because it messes up your bounties and your portal fractures. But those threats are less important with Mattia, since you can start on turn 2, casting threats. You don't need to awkwardly play available Meddler.
Yeah.
And hope to grow it. Hope the opponent doesn't have a clean answer, any burn spell. Mattia is also just a faster clock than available Meddler.
Mattia is very snowbally. It comes down as a 2-2, and then next turn it's a 3-3. And then if they don't stop it, it quickly grows out of range.
Yeah. A lot of the damage spells can be quickly run out of, since it end of turn Mattia, put counter on itself, attack, 3-3. If you have a counter spell backup, counter the removal spell, next turn's a 4-4, and suddenly not much kills Mattia.
Also, Mattia puts counters on other things, so like this thing's extremely flexible too. Even though most of the time it puts the counters on itself, but sometimes it actually acts as a combat trick.
It also works with Variable Meddler, so Variable Meddler plus Mattia counters the three CMC spell.
Right, that does work. And also it has an activate ability for some reason. I don't think I've ever seen it being activated so far.
Yeah, probably not the biggest deal, especially on this deck. Maybe you can use Bounty the Gardens to eat something, but yeah, really Mattia is the big card that's, I think, basically the only card that's kind of new to the stealth deck. But definitely a very big addition, and adds a lot of dimension and speed to the deck.
Also, notably, Incerning isn't running Anya in this deck, which is something that probably will be changed later.
Yeah, from what I talked to them, because I did ask them about Anya after a match, they didn't really seem to like Anya that much. I think they did say that they'd cut the sweeper legs for a third Mattia and a one of Anya.
Yeah.
But they thought that a lot of times you didn't really want to get to 5 lands, and Anya is kind of removal bait.
I mean, yeah. No, end of turn Panya, especially with Mattia, because Panya does synergize with Mattia.
Yeah. I mean, that is a bit overkill, but still. I personally think that Panya is a big reason to play this type of deck, but they do disagree. So, like for example, Magnus was on 2 Panyas. They're also playing Quelia.
Yeah, Boy Quelia to hate on other shifting land decks.
Yeah, but just for the Panya, they're on another land, and and to support those additional thoughts, they cut some interaction.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going forward, so we have Capacious Rattler in a bunch of different burn decks.
No, Almakino is the one that was it. Almakino that got the top 8.
Yeah, so Elmakino top aided with 3 main deck Capacious Rattler plus 1 sideboard.
Yeah.
But I think that's 4 burn decks this GP, and I think 2. And 2 of the other ones, so Gyno Poets and Queen Emily's,
Yeah.
were on 3 rather sideboard. I think obviously Rattler is an insane card.
Yeah.
ETB Arc Lightning on a 3-drop with a good body just sounds ridiculous. Also, you play Hugo.
It's Chain Whirler and Crack.
Yep. Really kind of decimates any kind of creature deck. In a way that's almost unfair for these decks that like should just be trading 1 for 1.
Yeah.
Definitely when I was playing big red, you had some ridiculous Rattler turns for Rattler 3 for 1s and you get the body, so 4 for 1.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's easy to get through first strike.
Yeah, and then you're also attacking them with. I mean, in big red, Rattler was being played alongside a bunch of other 3-drops. But like in Burn, just things the top end.
Yeah, so it does seem a bit weird for Burn to be playing 3-drops, but it seems like a great addition.
I mean, in Standard, Burn was playing Goblin Chain Whirler, so it's not that weird.
Yeah, but that was standard. I think our power level was a bit higher here. Additionally, it also lets you play Hugo as a 3-drop.
Yeah.
So being able to get around like Ricky Distant, not letting you play Hugo, you kind of have an alternate high end with Rattler. I think you also have no good gunfighter, which I think they said was basically just burn hate. I'm not exactly sure if it's worth playing at main deck why exactly they're playing at main deck.
It's a 2-drop that you can play with Hugo.
Yeah, but at the same time, it feels like you should just be playing like the 4th Rattler and some more unjust sentences or whatnot.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's interesting to see these kind of more mid-rangey 3-drops showing up in Burn. Like I wouldn't even be surprised to see like a Raga show up. In Burn as a 5 ramp ++.
Right.
Anything else you want to mention about the Burn decks?
Well, so like when you're looking at the sideboard though, all the burn decks have pretty different sideboards, I think.
Yeah, so Gyno Poet.
Gyno Poet's splashing blue for Crest.
Gyno Poet has a very different list.
Oh, yeah.
Than Elmakino's, so they're not on Hugo, which lets them play Curse of Bleeding instead of Rage Ravaged. Also lets them play Great Flame VMAX, which is an interesting new card.
But yeah.
Also, I do kind of question the Crest when you're already on enters Mephisto's Gate, but definitely an interesting choice.
And Emily is
yeah, so Emily is actually not on Rattler main deck, but is on Raga main deck.
Yeah. So
but otherwise pretty similar to Amikino's list, except with the no good gun pointers in the sideboard.
Which is probably what you want to be doing because it's burn hate. So I want to
Yeah,
start to burn hate in the sideboard.
Yeah, I think it's a much more natural thing to see. There may be, I don't know, it's entirely possible that the creature is also a good thing for main deck option, but I'm not entirely sure. So moving forward, we have a little blank on Death Touch Tribal.
Well, it's Pain City, but yeah, it's more accurately it's the Shadow Staff tribal, or Shadow Staff plus infectious, what's it called, Contagious Death Spore tribal. So I really like this deck. Or I mean, I'm not sure how good the deck is, but I just really like how the deck synergizes with the Shadow Staff plus Contagious Death Spore plus Happy Dancer. Because I remember like before New or Over the Horizon came out, people were theorizing about Happy Dancer Infinite, but they were like thinking about Gift of Fire or something.
Yeah, so this deck did not top 8. It went 3-0 and then lost its last 2 rounds. I still don't really like this particular build of the deck. Like, it can definitely win games. Contagious Death Spore is a very scary card. The Shadow Staff combo is also fairly scary. I still have pretty major problems with this specific build, where you're not really guaranteed to get, like, it's really hard to find the combo, I think. Well, you do have a couple ways to search for Canopy Dancer with Deadland Scavenger and Nilled Toss Shaman milling for the back in the dam, but you don't have that much tutoring or filtering.
Yeah.
Where I saw on the decklist stream, it's this deck's really reliant on getting Contagious Death Spawn play.
I think that's sort of what happened in GP. Like, I think in your game against this deck, you just kept killing their stuff with Helen Devastator, and then they just couldn't do anything, or they couldn't combo off afterwards.
Yeah, so the one game they won, versus me, they played Nail Toss Shaman into Contagious Death Spore into Contagious Death Spore, and that's a very brutal card. Died basically immediately. But the thing is that if the other 2 games, they just didn't get that draw. And yeah, they drew a Canopy Dancer, but they didn't draw the Shadow Staff. Or they had both, but then I killed one of them with Helen Devastator. And it's like, well, now your deck doesn't really do anything. I do think that this deck is kind of interesting as a concept. Contagious Death Spore is a very scary card. But with only 3 one drops, you can't really have that great of a curve most of the time. Second Damned is a very interesting card. Goes back Shadow Staff, BSU Ravens, Canopy Dancer, etc. Also with Deadland Terror, very neat. But generally, I don't think the pieces quite fit together well. There's definitely a bunch of options for this deck. I think there's a new 1-drop Death Touch creature in Over Horizons.
Is there? Oh, what's it called?
It's the Bleed guy. Give me 1 second. Treacherous Informant.
Right. That guy. I mean, I guess you're just playing it as a Death Toucher.
Yeah, as a Death Toucher, but also just but it's also just a much more innately powerful card than like Neltal Shaman, where if you pay the bleed cost, it's 3/3, and something that you start to have like an actual mid-range plan.
Do you want it
And
to be a
whatnot.
mid-range deck though? Like, don't you want to go
Well,
all in on a combo?
you kind of. I don't think it has the searching potential, but you throw like Trechon's Formant, play some Valdez, you know.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's a Valdez deck. No,
I mean, yeah, why can't it be? Kind of.
good point.
Where you just kind of play higher quality base cards and rely a bit less on the combo.
How
I think
about
this would be very
what
interesting.
about playing a Journey Begins just to find stuff? I mean, Journey
Yeah,
Begins hits
absolutely.
basically your entire deck, right?
Jam Begin could be a great addition to the deck. Helps you find your combos quicker. Such as the Contagious Death Spore, which is kind of the key card. But yeah, I think this deck could be very, very interesting, especially if it got some more durations. Then moving on, we have
And then the
actually.
Black Green deck.
I guess we should probably mention the last deck in the top. I guess top 7.
Right.
As we mentioned every other deck, we didn't mention the Homid Troubles list.
Yes.
So just for completeness,
Bug Pressure.
I think this. I forget if this is the exact same list they're running last GP. I think they added some new cards with Orodu's consumption.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty obvious addition because it has pressure on it and it's a good card.
Yeah, makes sense if they pressure that card and bug pressure.
I'm actually not sure like how well this card's been performing because I feel
I
like
feel like
yeah,
I
like every
remember them
time
mentioning that it worked out.
like huh?
Let me. I feel like I remember them being happy with it, but I guess I can't find it where they said that. Maybe I'm just imagining
Okay.
it. But definitely as like a free spells in general are just very powerful. And I don't think you're that unhappy playing a 4/3 speed Hero's Downfall when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I guess.
Like GP winning deck was playing Murderous Scorpion. Granted, that's a bit of a different story, but same kind of 4/3 speed Hero's Downfall with upside.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily this deck is necessarily that interesting.
Oh,
But I figured I'd mention it for completeness.
well, I guess something that's interesting is that it's running Jar Champion, even though it doesn't really synergize with the rest of its deck, most just triggering off fetch lands.
Yep, fetch lands. It's also just a good 1 mana threat.
Yeah.
I think that is something these kind of bug decks struggle with, where all the threats are kind of slow. So like they start on 2 mana with Bitter Duckling or Mark Bruiser.
Yeah.
And their 1 mana options are like Scuttling Gnat, which is also pretty slow. But having a 1 mana option to kind of get around that is kind of nice.
Yeah, I guess.
But moving forward, we have Dr. Chilbrain's Poison.
Yeah, a very interesting deck.
Um,
So yeah, somehow they've actually managed to make it successful poison deck where you kill a opponent with poison, and you're not just using it to enable your poison cards.
yeah, definitely a very interesting kind of tribal deck. It is also Naga tribal, just by coincidence.
Naga or Snake Tribal.
Both. The
Okay,
Lord plus both.
good.
So this also didn't top 8. also do well. 3 and 2. I think much of the initial impressions of the deck kind of work out, where kind of a base aggro deck, but you're playing some pretty powerful cards with a break of Malk test.
Yeah.
No idea how to pronounce that. Synth Solar is a pretty good win con, very threatening. Otherwise, you just have your tribal aggro stuff. Your bad 1-drops, which is a staple of tribal aggro.
Well, except these guys actually deal 2 damage instead of 1 damage.
Yeah. But I think they're mostly in the deck just for curve purposes.
Yeah.
Clutch of the Coil, obviously a great way to spend mana later on.
Yeah, I think
this 2 is very big.
Yeah, they mentioned how Clutch of the Coil is probably one of the best cards in the deck, just because it's basically a mana land that swings for 4 damage their deck.
Yeah, I think without Clutch of the Coil, this is a very mediocre deck, to be honest. But with it, everything just becomes so much more threatening. We're trading 1-for-1 with like decks trading 1-for-1 with like Scorches and whatnot. That suddenly doesn't really work anymore. And it doesn't really take that long before Clutch of the Coil puts the opponent's in slither range.
Yeah.
Which is another huge threat. And Slither is really hard to deal with if it's going to win the game. Because Poor Toughness activates on end step.
It's basically Obscuriate or Bust.
More or less. I guess few options.
Yeah. Also, Serpent's Grasp. So it turns out Serpent's Grasp, you get to choose whether they get a counter or not. So
yeah, that was something I was surprised at the first time I played against this card. It does make the card way better though.
I mean, it's like Forked. It's like Forked Pillar, but 2 mana and instant, I guess.
Yeah. So I think the unfortunate thing about this deck is that it's pretty unlikely to get new cards.
I mean, hey, maybe someone. I mean, did anyone really expect Beyond the Ken to add more poison cards to the format?
I mean, have they even playing any Beyond the Ken cards?
No, but like,
I guess that's fair. Where Beyond Your Ken did add some cards. I think they were playing the Mind Falters at one point. They decided to cut it.
Well, yeah, that's probably a good idea, because Mind Falters haven't really... Wait, does Valdez fit in this deck?
I don't think Valdez... I mean, you could play Valdez. I think that's a good card.
Yeah.
But probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe, I guess you could cut Boston defense for it. And you do normal damage too. This is an infect. This is poison.
Yeah.
So any opponent, any can like potentially punish your opponent, liberally cracking shock fetching themselves for a pain land and going down to like 10 life from lands alone. But I think generally this deck probably isn't getting any new tools, particularly soon.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's kind of funny how basically every deck we've looked at so far, except the Temur deck, plays black in some capacity.
Is that an indictment of Valdez's effect on the format?
I mean, even decks without Valdez, I mean, the burn decks weren't playing it. I wasn't playing it. But it's kind of funny. It was actually the entire top 8 was playing black, right?
Yeah, right?
Sorry, besides Temur Tempo. I guess 2 of those were 5-color decks, but still.
Yeah. I mean, you were playing... Wait, did you play black cards that went 5-color?
Color and Devastator, but besides that, no.
Close enough.
So then getting close to the end, we have Gendered Terrorist on Deserts.
Yeah,
I'm surprised this deck went 3-2. I think they started at 3-0 as well.
yeah, and
I,
they got pared down, and so then the GP, I mean, the top eight became a top seven.
yeah, I still don't think this deck is good.
Well, of
There
course,
are a few.
I mean,
I mean,
I mean, if you look at it, yeah, of course it doesn't look that good.
there are a few interesting things that came up with the deck, with like Tomb of Shifting Sands being able to turn into gear,
Yeah,
Gaia gear, which is a cool interaction. I think in general, Buzzard Barons is just a very powerful card. The only unfortunate thing being deserts is not a good mana base.
I mean, it's
Uh,
not the worst mana base in the world.
like I've tried to build a desert bit Buzzard Barons deck with like endless help of souls,
Uh,
and really you have very few options for good fixing if you want to play stuff on turn one. Um,
right.
if you can afford to not play things on turn one, you know, it's absolutely fine. But this like Convoy's Companion is pretty unlikely to start growing on turn two, or attack and grow on turn two, rather.
Yeah.
But I do think that, from what I understand, Buzzard Band seems to be the card that won them a lot of games.
I think they also a Sahar. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, mostly just Blizzard Barons, and then they also have a bunch of just good creatures.
Yeah, a bunch of decent mid-range threats.
You know,
Also, tend to grow. Finding Buzzard Bands is another neat interaction.
well, it tends to grow
And
up
also
hits Imperial
ramping you and
Siege,
whatnot.
and yeah, they have a decent amount of land destruction in the deck too. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
how often that came up because in one of the games, when there was, one of the games, they didn't Imperial Siege on turn two, even though they had the mana to, because I guess they were trying to play around counters or something.
I have found Imperial Siege to be a really good, at least a very good sideboard card for these kind of base green, like in the Naya colors. You don't really have great options versus control.
Yeah,
Um, especially if you don't want to play something like Fade. So an Imperial Siege does actually hit a lot of decks. So it's kind of nice. Um, but yeah, I think quite enough on this deck. So then we have
Impeg's Mono White Soldier Tribal, which
yeah,
also got a 3-2, I think.
yeah, and this deck's also very interesting. Tribal aggro, but operating on instant speed. Um,
Yeah,
lots of cool things going on. At the same time, I think it is a bit draw dependent. If you draw the wrong half of your deck, you just kind of lose, and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah. If you draw 6 planes in your opening hand, you have to mulligan.
Yep. But, um, but kind of these, if invalidate and fade aren't good and you draw them, you're very unhappy. And if you
Also,
don't draw Golden Company Tactics or your dual explodes, you're also unhappy,
yeah,
and etc. etc. At the same time, that is a price you have to pay for a really good upside of being entirely instant speed.
or instant speed tribal deck, except for your board or your buffs, because those guys are sorcery speed.
So being able to go like end of turn, raise the alarm, Acquianos' command or whatever, make 4/1/1s, Golden Company Tactics, only swing in for 12 damage,
Yeah,
and the deck is very scary.
and you also get to take advantage of Sunrise Prairie.
Yep, absolutely. Um,
But,
Yeah, I don't think there's much else to say on this deck besides instant speed good.
oh, I mean,
And
there's there should be a better replacement for Ride the Railguard, but apparently we looked through everything and there actually isn't.
yeah, I mean, melee isn't excessively bad.
And apparently Shempek was playing with the assumption that Quick Draw worked on attacks, or like it worked even if you weren't blocked.
Yeah, but definitely a 4-mana spell in this deck where you and like 4-mana spell that doesn't really do what you want at 4-mana when you only have 22 lands is definitely a little bit sketchy. But
Yeah.
again, a price you have to pay. So I think that's all the decks we want to talk about and all the cards.
Actually, I would like to give a shout out to Mako for trying to run Grix's, or I guess Esper with Red Minister.
I would not. I think I watched one game of them playing the deck and they were allergic to Minister.
Yeah. So like I was hoping that I would be able to like watch them try figure out how Minister works, but then for the first 4 rounds they never drew Minister, or no, they never drew Minister in the first round, and then they no showed for the second round, and then I'm not sure what happened in the third round. I guess they didn't draw Minister either or something, or they no showed again or something. But yeah, then in the fifth round I missed the game because I was sleeping. But looking at the replays, yeah.
Yeah. Something that Chumbake mentions in chat is that they went 3-2, but it's 3-2 asterisks because they unfortunately had to miss a match due to personal issues, I guess.
Right.
Other things that they need to do. Yeah. And as much as like I like Minister, and I think more people should be playing Minister, I cannot support how they piloted this deck in the one game that they played with it.
But what game did they actually drew the Minister in?
Yeah, like it was versus Tropic Thunder, and it physically pained me as they targeted Ruined Elva with Unearth instead of Minister. And they're sitting with the Minister in hand for like 5 turns. And the opponent almost decks out, and I think they activated Minister like 5 times in the entire game.
Okay, I really wish we were around to commentate that game because it would have been hilarious. But
it physically hurt me. I could not watch the second game.
I mean, they lost the second game, so yeah. At least it's pretty obvious what didn't happen.
They deserved to lose the second game. But yeah, I guess that's part of the problem with picking up a toolbox deck without knowing that's a toolbox deck.
Yeah. Okay, but like, I think we're done with the decks. We want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to mention. Any kind of cool cards that you notice that we haven't talked about?
Oh, 3 wishes, or 3 cheers. Never mind. Yeah, it's called 3 cheers.
Yeah, so Patches was Patches, right? Patches was playing Vilni.
Oh, did they not update it with the secret layer yet? Okay, whatever.
I don't think that they performed very well on the deck, but who choose Vilni can definitely be incredibly scary.
Oh, it was their first time in the format. I think they did reasonably well.
I think something that you mentioned before we started was
yeah, tenuous existence and the
tenuous existence in modal kind of style. So like if you have a Nexus possibilities in play, tenuous existence is just 2 mana, kill a dude. With flashback.
Yeah, and it flashes back to kill another dude,
which is really quite scary. And then with Palison as well, though obviously less powerful than Nexus, but still. Let's see. Unfortunately, you didn't get the back-to-back with Rejuvenation.
Also, I lost against the burn deck. I mean, I completely misplayed against the burn deck by forgetting to play my third land. Or no, I forgetting to play my fourth land and just passing the turn.
Yep. But definitely shows that Rejuvenation, despite of winning last GP, it's still doing a strong performance. 3-2's solid record.
Rejuvenation is just a sort of deck that can nut draw, and like those sort of decks always have the chance to do really well.
Yeah, can nut draw, can also fizzle completely. Problem with playing 28 lands.
Somehow you can also like just get mana screwed. Somehow.
Yeah, happens. Also does encourage you to keep kind of sketchier hands.
Oh yeah, like
because you're like, oh, you have a 2-lander, but you have 28 lands. So it's really not a 2-lander. But it is really a 2-lander.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of times where I kept a 4-land hand, and then where I kept this 3-land hand, and I decided to bottom one of my spells instead of one of the land because I had a Logger Recluse plus a 3-mana spell or something.
Yeah.
And then I draw land and feel really stupid.
Yeah, and then you draw more lands and you feel even stupider.
Yeah.
Kind of the price you pay for not being able to kind of manipulate your draws. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else that was. I guess what another 3-2 deck was Q on
Reforger Train.
Yeah, on Reforger Train.
Yeah.
I forgot if this was any different than Pickle Train. I think they're playing Fortremaster's Altar as one condition.
I think it's like that is a pretty big change from how the deck usually works.
Yeah.
Because now you have like a creature beat strategy.
Yeah, kind of shifting to the mid-range backup plan is always kind of a very nice thing to have in your back pocket. So now not only does the opponent need to answer your Covenant speed, they also need to answer your Fortremaster's Altar. If either of those survive, you're pretty happy.
And yeah, Fortremaster's Altar with Usage's Ashes also very good.
Yep.
Or actually just Fortremaster's Altar with any of the cost reducers plus just cantrip artifacts. But yeah.
And also playing Jade Temple with Mana Potion is a pretty neat mysterious cop as well.
Too bad Jade Temple isn't broken anymore. You have to use Mana Potion now.
Yeah, I can't play the Soul Lands or Lotus Lands, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Like Fortremaster's Altar is basically just a replacement for Union Real Strikebreaker, except it doesn't get killed by creature removal.
Unfortunately, got in the sideboard and Shining Crusader kind of helps with that plan as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think besides that, I don't think there's anything else I want to talk about.
There's also a Merfolk deck that Ace Farmer tried to run, taking advantage of the new Kalilia Scavenger. But
yeah, I don't think. Unfortunately, how well did that deck do? Unfortunately, we won in 4.
I managed to get a few games recorded from it. But they have an artifact package with Coralite Paladin. They're like running rail lines, so yeah, for some reason.
Probably the Merfolk deck I thought talking about, the Quillia deck. Yeah, definitely a lot of tribal aggro, none of which I think did especially well. People are still experimenting with like elves and whatnot in League. So
Yeah, and then there's also the Lilia deck that what was it again that tried to run Blues Eclipse?
Mm.
Yeah,
Again, I think kind of what I said on the deckless stream, where there's no real way to apply pressure. Like
yeah.
if you don't draw Colia, you're kind of out of luck.
Even if you draw
Um,
Lilia, you're still kind of out of luck because it turns out Mark the Skill Bar isn't that good because you need your opponent to have a bunch of creatures for it to be good, and if you do, then uh, fish, you fish trades with one crocodile.
yeah. So I think what I said on the deckless stream, like what I said to them with like Down to the Garden being kind of that card not being in the deck is kind of a major issue.
Yeah,
Where that would fix a lot of problems with like controlling the board and needing Quillia to do anything. Um, Especially when you already have Cane Dancer. But yeah,
yeah,
I think it's probably good to wrap things up there.
yeah. That's pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about. So something,
But
but something like or a deck that I kind of hope that someone runs next GP is the new infused combo deck, the one with Ton Twister and
oh, the deck that I have said existed and have never posted.
yeah,
Yes. Uh, we'll see. I don't. I'm still working on that deck. I'm not sure if it even runs Infuse. It might just might be a grasp for understanding.
so like infuse with infuse. I mean
You can
that
just call
tracks
it
with,
Storm. I mean,
but I mean it tracks with like the naming convention of naming combo decks after the card that got nerfed.
yeah, but it's a completely different deck. Doesn't doesn't really play many of the cards that Infuse was playing.
Yeah,
Much less overlap. Um, and like Tongue Twister is new. Like all the creatures are new. I don't think Infuse would want Seals Down Leaf Mage. Leaf, is that what the card's called? It's a leaf. Uh,
yes. Leaf down Sizzle Mage.
okay. Um, but yeah. So yeah, I think big takeaways is that Valdez is very good. I think black as a color is doing incredibly well. Um, Even if it's just to trigger work in your 5 color decks. Um, L and Thriving Building, very strong core to do basically whatever the hell you want. Um, and then Matt here in really adds a new dimension to these tempo decks, as with Rattler and Ben. And then there's some cool decks that probably need a bit more tuning to start being like top contenders.
Yeah, I think
But
we're I think we'll just end it here.